Hi, welcome to Beef Cattle Institute's Ask the Experts, where our experts answer your question. I'm Brad White. I'm joined by two good experts today, Dr. Bob Larson.
Hey, good morning.
And Dr. AJ Tarpoff.
Good morning.
So we've got a great listener question today, and as they answer it, they get up to 10 points for their answer. As always, if you have a question for us, you can send it to us at bci@ksu.edu. Today's listener question involves vaccinating cows, and the question was, should I vaccinate them at pre-breeding or should I vaccinate them at mid-gestation or pregnancy check time? AJ, I'm going to go to you first.
So my number one thing when vaccinating cattle, especially cows, is you have them caught. So if you're already working them, if you're already moving pastures, having them caught, I think, is essential. So that would be my number one. And then time frame before or after, before breeding or after breeding, I think it comes down to what's your risk? What's your perceived risk? Are you concerned about maintaining pregnancy, or are you concerned about making sure we have high quality colostrum for the cow?
Okay, excellent. So a couple good points there. So AJ starts out with 5. Bob?
The other consideration is really how much disease pressure or how often do you think you're going to actually be exposed to these types of germs? In that there's a lot of herds in this part of the world that are pretty closed. And so the germ pressure is relatively low. And I'm leading this with most of our pregnancy, abortion prevention concern is in the first half to 2/3 of pregnancy. So the ideal time would be right before the start of pregnancy. But like AJ said, I've got them caught 2/3 of the way through pregnancy. And so that's not necessarily the ideal time, but for most herds, that annual booster at that time is sufficient if it's a closed herd that the risk is moderate to low. And so I'm going to say fall for a spring calving herd in most situations it fits I've got them caught and it's good enough from an immunologic standpoint.
Okay, Bob ended up with 6 points because he answered the question. You said either time. You didn't really answer the question. So Bob ends up with a little bit more. So I want to follow up. Both of you said it's based on both the risk and the stage of production, right? So when they are and what I'm concerned about and my external risks. But I want to ask, how long do those vaccines last? Because the way we're discussing it, we're saying that effect of vaccines may go up and down, may not be the same throughout an entire year. How long do we have some protection from those vaccines?
Well, the perfect academic answer is it depends.
Okay.
And it depends on what we're concerned about. We can get long-lasting protection and kind of a year-round booster from our clostridials, from some of our IBR and BVD. We can get some pretty good length of duration. Some of them, however, if we have concerns about lepto and some of the other issues like that, we may not have long-lasting protection. Where in some herds, and I work with them, that they may need vaccinated prior to breeding as well as at preg check to make sure that we are maintaining that pregnancy throughout.
Okay, excellent answer, because it really, based on which pathogen we're talking about, the length of immunity varies, which makes a difference in when I plug it into the program. So Bob, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. How does our management of, and I'm going to go all the way back to heifers, how does our management of vaccine program in heifers impact our cow vaccine program, if at all?
Yeah, well, I think it does, because I think for many of the diseases that we're talking about that can cause some pregnancy loss, probably my younger animals are more at risk because these are actually relatively common germs. And the adults build some immunity over time, either through vaccination or natural exposure. And so the animals on the herd that are the least protected are the young ones. So I think a good vaccination program starts with my replacement heifers. And so that's where I'm really going to emphasize a couple of doses before their first breeding season, get them set up well. And then in a lot of herds, kind of that annual booster, almost any time I've got them caught is sufficient if I set them up well as a heifer.
So both of you guys are saying, as far as frequency, annual is fine. Are there situations where I may need to go more or less frequently than annual? Or is annual kind of your target?
Annual at a minimum. Annual at a minimum, and then depending on my on disease risk or anything along those lines, I may change and that's why every operation is different, and that's why understanding the local veterinarian's recommendation is really what we go with, is making sure that local veterinarian understands your operation and may perceive some of that regionalized or localized risk, that maybe we need 2 doses, one prior to breeding to protect pregnancy and one at preg check or prior to calving to help booster that colostrum and protect that pregnancy.
Excellent. So make a plan for each herd as you go through. Bob ended up with 9. AJ ended up with 8. Thanks for joining us. As always, you can send us an email at bci@ksu.edu.